My name is Sarah Chen, and 6 years of my life ended the moment David Reyes changed the locks on our office door. I found out on a Tuesday morning. I walked up with my badge in hand, coffee in the other, and the reader blinked red. I tried again. Red. I called David. He picked up on the fourth ring. "Sarah," he said, "we need to talk. Not here, not today." "David, my badge doesn't work. What's going on?" "The board made some changes last night. I'm sorry, I really am." Then he hung up on me, just like that. 6 years. And he hung up on me like I was a wrong number. I want to back up because none of this makes sense unless you understand how we got here. David and I met in graduate school. He was the charming one, the one who could walk into a room and get investors nodding before he even opened his laptop. I was the technical one, the one who actually built the thing we were selling. We started the company in his apartment, 2 folding chairs and 1 laptop between us. We called it Verity Systems. We built software that used pattern recognition to catch fraud in financial transactions before it happened. For 4 years, it was just survival, ramen dinners, sleeping at the office. I trusted David with everything because he had earned it. When my mother got sick, he covered my part of payroll out of his own savings without telling me until months later. When his father died, I flew to Ohio for the funeral and sat with him the whole week. We weren't just partners, we were family. 50-50 on paper, and closer than that in real life. 2 years ago, everything changed, and it changed because of something David never knew about. I'd been working on a side algorithm, something outside the scope of Verity's core product, something I built alone, late at night, on my own machine, using my own time. It was a method for detecting synthetic identity fraud, a problem banks were desperate to solve. I filed the patent under my own name only, not the company's, because legally it was my personal work, done outside company hours with no company resources. I never told David, partly because it wasn't finished, partly because some quiet part of me wanted one thing in my life that was only mine. 8 months ago, a scout from a company called Halcyon Financial reached out. Halcyon is one of the 5 largest processors of digital payments in the country. They wanted the patent, not a license, an outright purchase. We negotiated for months quietly through my personal lawyer, a woman named Renata Ford, who had known me since college. The final number was $11 million, paid directly to me, with a clause that let me retain a limited personal license to use the underlying method in future ventures. The money hit escrow in March. It was sitting there, untouched, waiting for the closing date in the fall. Nobody at Verity knew. Not David, not our small staff, just me and Renata. I didn't hide it out of greed. I want to be honest about that. I hid it because David had been acting strange for months. Distracted, secretive, always in a corner talking quietly to our new VP of operations, a woman named Jessica Cole. Something in my gut told me to wait before I said anything. I told myself I would tell David once the deal closed for good. I was wrong to wait. But I was right to be careful. The morning my badge stopped working, I sat in my car in the parking lot and called Renata. "They locked me out," I said. "No warning, nothing." "Did you sign anything recently? Any board resolution, any amendment?" "No, nothing." "Then whatever they did it without you." That's not just cruel, Sarah. That might be criminal. I drove home. I didn't cry. Not yet. I was too stunned to cry. I opened my laptop and started digging through everything I still had access to. Old emails, old shared drives, anything that still worked from home. That's when I found the board resolution dated the night before. My signature was on it, a signature I never made. I stared at that document for 20 minutes without moving. 3 days later, I got an invitation. An actual printed invitation delivered by courier to the Verity Systems Series C Investor Showcase, happening that Friday at the Wyndham Grand downtown. My name was still on the guest list, near the bottom, under a category labeled Former Team. I almost didn't go. Renata told me not to go alone. My younger brother Marcus insisted on coming with me. Marcus works in software too, and he had never trusted David. Not once. Not from the very first year. You don't have to prove anything to these people, Marcus told me in the car. You already know the truth. I know, I said, but I'm tired of being the one who disappears quietly. We walked into that ballroom, and I felt every eye turn toward me. David stood on a small stage at the front, microphone in hand. Jessica Cole standing beside him in a sharp navy suit. Investors filled maybe 200 seats, champagne glasses in hand, murmuring. David saw me. His face flickered, just for a second. Then he smiled that stage smile, the one he used for pitch meetings. Ladies and gentlemen, he said into the microphone, before we begin, I want to address something directly. Some of you may have heard rumors about a leadership transition at Verity. I want to be transparent. Sarah Chen, our former co-founder, was removed from operational control due to a pattern of technical negligence and financial mismanagement that put this company at serious risk. The room went quiet. I felt Marcus's hand on my arm, steadying me. Sarah is welcome to stay for the presentation, David continued, but I want to be clear with our investors. The technology you are about to see is the product of this leadership team, this team standing here, and the vision we have built without the obstacles of the past. Jessica leaned into the second microphone. We appreciate everyone's patience during this transition, she said. Verity is stronger than ever.
I sat down in the back row. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from something closer to disbelief. 6 years, and he stood on a stage and called me an obstacle.
The presentation rolled forward, slides about growth projections, slides about a new fraud detection module they claimed was proprietary technology developed entirely in-house. I recognized pieces of my own code architecture in those slides, dressed up in new branding, credited to nobody but the current leadership team. Then an older man near the front row stood up. I recognized him. Harold Whitfield, a retired federal prosecutor who now sat on Verity's advisory board, a friend of my late father, a man who had known me since I was a teenager. David, Harold said, his voice carrying without needing the microphone. Before you continue, I have a question about the fraud detection module you just described as proprietary. Of course, Harold, David said, still smiling. Isn't the core method behind that module the same synthetic identity detection process that Halcyon Financial purchased 8 months ago? The one patented under an individual name, not a corporate one. The room shifted. Champagne glasses paused halfway to lips. David's smile cracked just slightly. I'm not sure what you're referring to. I'm referring, Harold said, to a patent filing I happened to review last month as part of an unrelated advisory matter, filed by Sarah Chen, personally, 11 months before this so-called in-house development began. Every head in that room turned toward me. David laughed, too loud, too fast.
That's absurd. Sarah has no personal patents. She would have told me. Would she? Harold asked, given how she was treated 3 days ago.
Jessica grabbed the microphone. This is a baseless accusation from a disgruntled former employee sitting in the back of the room. I think we should move on. I'm happy to move on, Harold said, the moment Sarah confirms or denies what I just said. I stood up. My legs felt distant, like they belonged to someone else, but my voice came out steady. It's true, I said. I filed that patent under my own name, legally. It was developed on my own time, with my own resources, entirely separate from Verity's corporate work. I sold it to Halcyon Financial for $11 million. The deal closes in October.
Gasps. Actual gasps, the kind you only hear in movies, except this was real and it was my life.
That's a lie, David said, his voice rising. You're trying to sabotage this raise because you're bitter about being let go.
This is slander, plain and simple, and I want it on record that Sarah Chen is spreading false information to damage this company's valuation.
Slander requires a false statement, I said. Everything I just said is documented. Then document it, David snapped. Right now, or sit down. So I did. I pulled out my phone. I had already forwarded everything to a shared screen link that Renata had set up that morning, just in case. I asked the event technician to cast it to the main projector. He looked at David, who hesitated, then nodded, because 200 investors were watching, and saying no would have looked worse than saying yes. The first thing that appeared on the screen was the patent filing itself, time-stamped, my name. The filing date 11 months before David's claimed in-house development began.
Coincidence,
David muttered. The second thing that appeared was a message thread, not from me, from David to Jessica, dated the week after my badge stopped working. David had written, "We need to move fast before Sarah figures out we forged the resolution. If she finds out about the patent money first, she'll have leverage. Get the lawyer to backdate the paperwork." The room went dead silent.
Take it down, David said. Take it down right now.
I don't control the projector, I said quietly. You do, or Jessica does. Jessica's face had gone pale. She stepped back from the microphone like it had turned hot. The third piece of evidence was the forged board resolution itself, side by side with an authentic signature sample pulled from my actual notarized documents. The difference visible even to someone with no training in handwriting analysis. My signature has a distinctive loop on the C in Chen. The forged one didn't have it.
Anyone can fake a comparison, David said,
but his voice had lost its certainty completely. The fourth piece was a short audio clip, 12 seconds, pulled from a voicemail Jessica had accidentally left on my old company phone, the one that somehow still forwarded messages to my personal number, because IT had never fully disconnected it. In the recording, Jessica's voice said clearly, "Once she's out and the resolution is filed, we control the IP conversation completely. She won't even know what hit her until it's too late to fight it legally." That was the moment the room turned. I felt it happen physically, like a change in air pressure. Investors who had been sitting rigid now leaned toward each other, whispering, One man in the third row stood up and walked straight out the door, phone already at his ear. Another woman near the front closed her laptop hard enough that the sound echoed. Harold Whitfield stood again. David, Jessica, I think this showcase is over. You can't just end this, David said, but nobody was listening to him anymore. Investors were gathering their things. Someone near the back said, loud enough for half the room to hear, I am not putting a single dollar into this. Within a week, everything unraveled in sequence, like dominoes set up months in advance without my even realizing it. The forged board resolution triggered an immediate internal investigation by Verity's remaining independent board members. Within 4 days, David and Jessica were both suspended pending review. Within 10 days, they were formally removed from all executive positions, and the board reinstated my original ownership stake, since the forged document had no legal standing once challenged. Halcyon Financial's legal team, upon hearing about the public accusation of fraud connected to their pending acquisition, launched their own review. The deal didn't collapse. If anything, it accelerated, because Halcyon wanted the patent locked in before any further controversy could complicate the transfer. The $11 million payment cleared in full 3 weeks later. The state attorney general's office opened an inquiry into the forged signature, since forging a corporate resolution crosses from a civil matter into criminal territory. David was interviewed twice. Jessica hired a separate lawyer from his, which told me everything I needed to know about how loyal they actually were to each other once the pressure started. 2 of Verity's original investors, the ones who had backed us since year 1, filed a formal complaint against David for breach of fiduciary duty. Their lawyers reached out to me directly, asking if I would consider returning as majority owner to stabilize the company. I told them I would think about it. 3 weeks after the showcase, David called me. I almost didn't answer. Marcus was sitting next to me on the couch and told me I didn't have to. I picked up anyway, because I wanted to hear whatever he had to say. Not for him, but for myself. Sarah, he said, and his voice sounded smaller than I had ever heard it. I know I don't deserve this call. I know I don't deserve anything from you. I just need you to know I'm sorry. I panicked. Jessica convinced me the patent money meant you were planning to leave anyway, that you'd already checked out of the partnership emotionally, and I let that fear turn into something ugly. I made a horrible decision. I'm asking you to forgive me. I sat there for a moment, phone against my ear, looking at the framed photo on our bookshelf, the one from our very first year. David and me standing in front of that tiny rented office with a hand-painted sign taped to the glass door. I don't forgive you, I said, because forgiveness isn't the thing you're actually asking for. You're asking me to pretend the last 6 years meant something to you the way they meant something to me. And I can't do that anymore, because you already showed me they didn't. He tried to say something else, but I ended the call before he could. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt tired. And then, slowly, over the following days, I felt something quieter than triumph. Relief. That weekend, my mother, fully recovered now and stubborn as ever, cooked dinner for the whole family at her house. Marcus brought his fiancée. Renata came too, since by then she wasn't just my lawyer. She had become one of my closest friends. We sat around a table too small for everyone, elbows bumping, laughing about nothing in particular. And at one point, my mother reached over and squeezed my hand without saying anything, the way she used to when I was small and scared of thunderstorms. "You built something real," she said quietly, just to me. "Nobody can take credit for that but you." I looked around that table at the people who had never once needed a forged signature or a locked door to prove they were on my side. And I understood, maybe for the first time since this whole nightmare began, that I had never actually lost anything that mattered. Verity Systems is under new leadership now, mine, with a board that finally reflects who actually built the thing worth protecting. The Halcyon deal closed clean, and somewhere out there, David Reyes is rebuilding his life from a much smaller foundation than the one he tried to steal from me. So here's what I want to ask you. The people listening to this story right now, how many of you have trusted someone for years, only to watch them turn on you the moment they thought you couldn't fight back? And how many of you found out, the way I did, that the quiet thing you built alone, the thing nobody else believed in, turned out to be the very thing that saved you? If this story meant something to you, hit that like button right now. Subscribe if you want more stories like this one. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done differently in my position? I read every single comment and I want to hear your story too.